We are speaking with Hadar Schwartz. Hadar is a physical therapist and certified Pilates instructor working at the Israeli Disabled Veterans Organization, working, of course, with disabled soldiers. Welcome, Hadar.
Hi, nice to see you.
So you are in Tel Aviv?
Yeah. Yes.
So big city, lots of soldiers.
Big, small country, lots of soldiers.
Lots of soldiers. And you're not working just with soldiers from the most recent Lebanon war. You're working with soldiers dating back. You had mentioned their
67, 73, 82.
You mentioned they're veterans with experience. I like
Definitely. But it's true, and it's also reflecting to the studio work. When you get someone that has experience as a veteran, as a disabled person, then you no longer need to do all kinds of considerations like, how do I get this guy from the wheelchair to the equipment? They just kind of jump on it, and they know how to work with their own disabilities. So this is something that is really comfortable and relaxing when you just begin to work with them.
And how long have you been working with disabled soldiers?
I have been a part of this project for 2 years now, but as a physical therapist, I've encountered all kinds of disabilities before and worked with neurological disorders, MS, Parkinson's, and spinal cord injuries also before that.
So as a Pilates instructor working in this environment, is the Pilates something that's new to this program at the Veterans Organization, or has it been around for quite a while?
Well, in Israel, it's the first center that established a well-equipped studio inside a veteran's house, like we call it, and incorporated the Pilates work in their variety of activities that they do. They do sport activities, they do physical therapy, they do all kinds of activities for rehabilitation. So Pilates is a part of it for the past 2 years only.
Oh, okay. So when you started there is when Pilates was also
That's
introduced.
when they opened the studio, actually.
What kind of work were you focusing on that was different than what they were already doing, I guess?
So that's an interesting question, because having said that they are experienced and go a long way back with their disabilities, you don't really expect them to improve that much. Not like a new wounded soldier that just went out of rehab or just went out of the hospital. Then you expect them to make an enormous step forward. And then with us, it was something that we didn't expect. We just added it to their everyday activities, thinking, well, this will contribute to their maintenance and to their quality of life, and to, well, introduce them to a new kind of very popular sport. And then they just came in a little bit, you know, suspicious on the, at first. So then we started seeing really major processes and progress that happened to people who were already disabled for 20 years. And that's when we started to be really excited about it.
And really go, okay, we've got
and
something
started
here.
using the camera a lot to document. And yeah, my iPhone camera has been working extra hours, because we were really excited about what's been going on. And not only my work, I'm the only physical therapist in the studio, but all of the instructors, more experienced and less experienced instructors, were absolutely overwhelmed by the progress that people were making.
What is the protocol, or what kind of exercises are you focusing on? Is it balance-based? Are there like specific, are you working, okay, lateral translation of the spine? What kind of specific starting point is there? Or maybe there isn't a specific starting point.
That question is actually asking, how many kinds of different disabilities do you meet every day? And that's actually...
How many stars in the sky?
Yeah. And I think that what I love most about this studio is the variety, the absolutely enormous variety of different cases. So yeah, we have amputees, but every amputation is different. The level of amputation, the length of the stump, well, even who was the one that was amputated. I have a man that was once 190 what is your American? You can't by foot. We have the metric
190
system.
centimeters would be. Is he tall or short?
Like a more than 6 foot.
Okay.
So if you have a taller person or a shorter person, that will affect their base of support and their center of gravity, and then you have to work differently with each and every one of them. So that's just the amputees, and then you get all the neurological stuff that is much more. It varies the level of injury, if it's a spinal cord injury, and then if it's a complete injury or an incomplete injury, which completely changes the protocol that you use. So we were discussing it before. Sometimes when I have to screen someone, if the case is severe enough for me to work with him, or I can send them to the other instructors. So I kind of use the first session to do a kind of push the limits and find the scope of his abilities in order to understand how far can he go at this point. And then if it's a very bad, severe case, I take him under my supervision. And if it's a lighter case, like amputation at our studio, can go to a regular class with other people. We don't work with them one-on-one, unfortunately, but we just treat them as, okay, you are a regular person. You don't have 1 or 2 or 3 limbs. So,
and do you find when you bring them into the Pilates environment as an amputee, are they having to relearn that balance even maybe before you throw them into a group class or a group setting? It seems like the balance on so many exercises in the Pilates equipment is known for having a lot of freedom to it, which also means we can't really lock you into this machine the way you might be locked into like a machine at the gym.
Yeah, so most of them do come from the gym initially, and they find it very challenging to be able to have to activate their core and balance through their center and not through being really leaning into a machine at the gym. But I think that balance training comes after controlling breath, controlling organization of ribs and pelvis, what we would do with every client. It's just that sometimes adjustments need to be made in order to even start doing that. So I would sometimes have to kind of maybe use an outside force in order for some of them to find, to even start to activate the center. So I give them like springs in their hands and tell them, okay, just pull with this, and then they start to feel the need to stabilize. Otherwise, having them breathe, I don't know, middle-aged men with a history of, warriors don't always find a way into breath and centering and control, and you kind of have to bring it on to them.
Bring it to them. Now, when you're working with someone with severe extremity injuries, and like you said, possibly amputees, are you trying to teach a position of the spine that doesn't move, or are you trying to add movement back into the spine?
Well, it depends on the goal of our work, because sometimes you want to improve gait, so you do need thoracic mobility, you do need this contralateral rotation in order to improve gait performance. But sometimes gait, and with many of the amputees, I see that the prosthesis is not a problem. They have Class A equipment, Class A prosthetics, and they actually have very, very good initiation in learning how to use the prosthetic limbs. So what we have to do sometimes is bring them back to how to even activate through their center and not move so much in the beginning, and not articulate too much in the beginning, and just kind of find their connection.
So an amputee who's learning to walk on prosthetics, I guess not when they're working with the shorties or the short...
They don't work with shorties at our
at your clinic.
Studio, because they are already years and years after rehab.
Oh, okay. All right. So when someone is So you're not working with someone who's learning how to use a prosthetic
No,
in general? Okay.
definitely not. And
So
they
we'll
have
leave that.
usually quite amazing training at the rehab centers in Israel, who's known for its
What
amazing
muscles
rehab
are
centers.
moving that prosthetic? What muscles are responsible for moving that prosthetic forward? Is it
Oh,
the quads?
it's
Is
of course it's the hip flexors
Okay.
in general, and then the hip extensors have to have a role in that. I don't want to get into prosthetic limb movement and activation because there are so many kinds of like the sea leg and all kinds of
I see.
different mechanisms that I'm not sure how much our audience can really
sure.
go into.
Yeah.
And
I think you covered it. A lot of hip extensor, a lot of hip flexor, without going into too much detail.
Just one more thing one more consideration to make is that stability is actually maintained not by flexors or extensors, but by abductors. So abductor work is the most important work in terms of prosthetic limbs and prostheses.
And with traumatic brain injuries, are you seeing traumatic brain injuries?
A lot of them.
And even with all of the other polytrauma injuries that you're seeing, do you find yourself working on the mental component of where the soldiers are coming, when the soldiers are coming in?
Well, first of all, it's important to say that even a traumatic brain injury varies from one case to another. The most interesting cases I find are the ones that are suffering from movement control disorders. They cannot initiate the movement properly, they cannot control the movement, so they have their limbs kind of wandering around. We call it ataxia in professional terms. So having them hold to a bar, which is a stable surface, and move the bar controls their shaking and controls the lack of efficiency in movement, so it makes their movement more efficient. And then, so this is one thing. And the other thing is spasticity, is the increased muscle tone that comes with central nervous system injuries. So everything that's below the level of injury, or well, it depends on the site in the brain, has increased tone level. So if I want to move this limb, I have a lot of resistance. And finding a way around it, using a lot of rotation, using even ring sitting is something considered to have an effect on spasticity. Finding a way around this is very, very interesting. So this is what I find really fascinating in working with neurological clients.
Before we finish up, is there a specific success story or a story with a soldier that kind of stands out in your mind?
The one story that we had on the video, and I told the guys before at lunch, was the story of Erez, who agreed to have his name and everything on the video. So, and he is the one suffering from severe ataxia. So when he initially walked in the studio, we drove in the studio with the wheelchair. I asked him, what is your goal? What would you want to benefit from this mutual work? And he said, well, the only thing I want is to be able to hold my little daughter without hurting her. And that was kind of a shock to me, because this guy, he's a real fighter. He's brave. He's has all the ability and all the goodwill in the world. And the only thing that this guy wanted was to be able to hold his daughter. That's not too much to ask, as far as I'm concerned. And he made actually a major progress.
He has, wow.
Yeah, and what we saw in the video was him being able to actually control his movement with a lot of his mind focused into it, a lot of breath, a lot of intention, you know, Pilates vocabulary. And
do you think he'll be able to hold his daughter?
I just recently asked him again, how is it with his daughter, and she's grown up. You know, she's 2 years older than she was.
Sure.
So his need has changed, but I think that he realizes that he made an amazing progress in.
Good.
Yeah. I think
Is there
so too.
anything else that I haven't asked you that you would love to tell our audience, either as Pilates instructors or soldiers looking for help in this area, or any polytraumatic patient?
What I love about our work in Israel is because we have many veterans. It's a part of Israeli culture and life, unfortunately. I try to look at each and every one of them as a completely regular human being coming into the studio to work out. Some of them we need to make more adjustment. For some of them we need to make less adjustments. But they are all regular clients, and we expect of them to take responsibility just as we expect regular clients. And this point of view on a disabled person is something that I want to encourage everyone to adopt, because many of us look at a disabled person and we kind of wonder, oh, can he understand what I told him? Just because he's sitting in a wheelchair, I'm not kidding. It's just, that's life. So if we kind of change our setting and understand that each and every one is a completely regular person with his thoughts and ideas and love and laughter and tears, just like the rest of us. They were in war, they were injured, they need adjustment. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That simply. That's a great message. We have been speaking with Hadar Schwartz. She is a physical therapist and certified Pilates instructor working at the Israeli Disabled Veterans Organization in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for this interview.
Of course.